Hi, Michael. How are you?
Fine, thank you. How are you, Ahmad?
It's good to see you. I mean, we talk all the time, but under these extraordinary circumstances, we're recording our conversation, and it's an interesting. I think it'll be an interesting conversation to share with people because it's about some of your work that's attracted considerable interest in the field of Quranic studies. And it has to do with the matter of literacy in Muhammad's Hijaz and your opinions in general on literacy in pre-Islamic Arabia. And I'll begin with it comes from this masterpiece of an article, Ancient Arabia and the Written Word, which you published in 2010. And despite all of these, new discoveries that have happened since then, it's really, I think, continued to be relevant and in general correct. So it really speaks to kind of your your foresight and good intuition too, and great research.
I'm just
Um,
waiting to be disproved.
but in general, so in there you make an important distinction. I think that this is a nice kind of theoretical, or yeah, we could say even theoretical contribution. You make a distinction between two types of societies in Arabia, ones that you call literate, and you say, for example, these are societies in which reading and writing have become essential to its functioning, either throughout the society or in certain vital aspects, such as the bureaucracy, economic, and commercial activities or religious life. And you contrast this with non-literate societies, and those are ones in which literacy is not essential to any of its activities, and memory and oral communication perform the functions which reading and writing have within a literate society. And so in this, you basically say, well, if we look at ancient South Arabia, that is a literate society, right? For them, I mean, they need writing to function for their administration, for all kinds of other things. Even though we don't have examples of them writing, let's say, religious texts, histories, literature as such down. I mean, they may have not, but it doesn't survive to us. It still doesn't make them a non-literate society, right?
Yes, I mean we have religious texts, of
We have
course,
religious texts, yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, they
uh,
do, they did that,
and
yeah,
and administrative texts to do with land possession
yeah,
and things like that. Uh,
absolutely.
but, but yes,
It-
absolutely.
yeah,
I
and
would. Sorry,
yeah,
go on.
sorry, I was just going to say you would call that a literate society then, South Arabia. And then what you would call non-literate would be the phenomenon that we see among the Safavidic writers in the Syro-Arabian Harra, who were nomads, true nomadic pastoralists, and they employed the written word. They produced probably what are out there, hundreds of thousands of texts, even though only 50,000 have been documented. There's probably hundreds of thousands. And but for them, writing was not essential to the functioning of their society. It was a pastime, or it interfaced with certain, ritual functions like mourning for the dead and things of this sort, but it was not, necessary for their society to function. And that would be the contrast. Now, what there's a popular thread now in Quranic studies that takes your definitions here and your ideas and assumes that you are saying that for Muhammad's Hijaz, that is in the 7th century and maybe even the 6th century, their society was essentially like the Safavidic situation, where they were deploying the Arabic script for, doodling, or these are their words. You would never call the Safavidic inscription simply doodles, but scrawling and doodling and things of that sort. And that it basically, writing was not essential to the functioning of that society. Writing wasn't deeply entrenched. This is a problem of interpretation by those who read you. So here's your opportunity really to clarify the matter. Yeah.
Well, thank you. I should say right at the beginning that as far as I can remember, I have never actually written about the southern Hijaz at the time of in the 7th century or 6th or 7th century, and I've actually not. I don't know. I'm not sure that anybody knows how much literacy there was between, say, the end of the 4th century and the Islamic period in the Hijaz. We know that we have inscriptions now written in Arabic and written in the Nabataean script, and we can see it gradually turning into the Arabic script. And this means that people must have been writing in ink on soft materials in that area, because that is the only way that a script develops. It doesn't develop if you're just always carving it on rocks.
By develop, if I may just interrupt you, by develop, you mean develop into a cursive script, into ligatures, right?
Nabataean script is already cursive.
Right, because it was
So
written on ink, with ink.
because it was written
Yeah,
in ink. And then that cursive script was transferred to stone
yeah.
in the Nabataean inscriptions. But what we see with the change from, or the development from the Nabataean script into the Arabic script, what we think of as the Arabic script, is change in the letter shapes, change in the way the words are formed, and this, as I say, only happens if you're writing on soft materials. So this means that there clearly was literacy. We've no idea how widespread it was, but it is absolutely not a non-literate society.
And if I may ask you here, just to clarify, the fact that you see the Arabic script developing this way in the Hijaz between, let's say, the 3rd and 5th centuries AD suggests that they're writing with ink on perishable materials,
Yeah.
and that contrasts with Safaitic, because Safaitic does not develop in this kind of way in a non-literate context. They are simply writing on rock. So the developmental trajectories of Arabic and Safaitic indicate that they're doing different things with the writing, with the script, right?
Exactly.
Okay.
Absolutely. And one of the things, or maybe you want to talk about this later, but one of the striking things to me about what Shoemaker says about me is that he uses my statement, sorry, that in an oral society, in a non-literate society, that even in a literate society, you can have certain things that are kept only oral. And I mentioned these are cultural things, like poetry, like history, like genealogy, which to be useful, genealogy to be useful needs to be oral because it has to be able to change to explain new political situations and history. And that but that this is completely independent of using writing for everyday reasons and for bureaucratic reasons and so on. And so what I suggested under the influence of Gregor Scholler is that one possibility is that in Mecca, at least, you had still this cultural or tradition of oral use for poetry and so on, even though we know that some of the teachers kept very distinct, very, very detailed written notes about it and wrote it down, but they had to transmit it orally. So it was a form of transmission, not saying you can't write down this because it's holy or poetry or so. And I think that what he does is to talk about an Arab culture, and that must be oral, that I'm saying is oral. And that's absolutely not what I'm saying. I'm saying that the society may well have been literate, but it was just in the 6th century and the beginning of the 7th, possibly, you had these particular things like the poetry and the history and genealogy and so on.
Genealogies, yeah. And that's not, that's not shocking at all and not incompatible with being in a literate society. So I'm thinking, part of what helps us understand the past is the present. Of course, it can't, determine what was in the past, but it helps us understand it. There is a rich tradition of oral poetry in Lebanon called Zajal.
Yes.
And so we have there these Christian communities that are using writing for all kinds of purposes, church records, everything else, even writing commentaries on holy texts, even occasionally, even writing translations of holy texts in the vernacular. But they don't write the poetry. The poetry is completely oral. right? There's until very recently did people start to systematically, of course, there are ad hoc, let's say, transcriptions of poetry, but it was not systematically written down. And it's only until recently that people start to systematically write down poetry for the purposes of preservation, right? They're aware that this is a kind of dying art and it needs to be preserved. So I think in that context, you see, you have sort of a parallel where exactly as you described, they are not, it's not an either or situation,
No,
right? Absolutely. So then I would ask you at the same time. So we would say, all right, the Hijaz of Muhammad's time has a script that developed in such a way that implies, um, let's say, quite consistent use with ink on perishable materials.
mm,
Marijn van Putten put out an article recently, which you read, on
mhm,
also the orthography and the spellings of this script,
mm,
which are not like Safaitic, where Safaitic in your non-literate context is phonetic spelling.
yeah,
There doesn't seem to be any thinking of grammar, any thinking of spelling rules. They just simply write as they speak.
no,
Whereas the Arabic script shows a sophisticated sort of metagrammatical thinking. There
absolutely.
is a school there that's training people how to write, but that school is also able to distinguish and to teach scribes. You write it this way because it is a morpheme.
Mm,
So they must have had a vocabulary about how to think about grammar, right? When it's a
mm.
morpheme, you write it this way. When it's not a morpheme, you write it this way. All of that kind of institution implies that writing was quite, well, something that the society invested in, right? Wouldn't you say?
Very sophisticated,
Yeah.
absolutely,
Yeah.
and is completely different to people who are writing phonetically
Yeah.
because they don't conceive of individual words. I mean, it's one
Yes.
reason why for instance, the Safaitic inscriptions don't have any word division.
Yeah.
Is because it all comes out of the rush. Uh,
Yes. 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 Of course.
um, but and it all. I know that Shoemaker poo-poos the traditions and so on, but there does seem to be one tradition about the prophet sending one of his amanuenses, whose name, of course, has just gone straight out of my head, but the one with the he was known as the one with the ringlets, but and Muhammad sent him to Medina to be taught how to write Arabic by the Jews. Now, given the fairly early anti-Semitism in the ruling classes of um, Islam, I doubt if this tradition would have remained um, if it hadn't had some basis in it. Um,
Yeah.
but I mean, just by the way,
Yeah. Yeah. It's certainly possible. There is this topos in early Islamic literature too of Jews being highly literate and also knowing other languages. So you get this reoccurring scene where locals stumble upon an ancient inscription. For example, when they were digging under the Kaaba, they found an ancient inscription they couldn't read. And so the first thing you do is you find a Jew and you bring him, the Jew will tell you what it says. And so there is this idea of this association of literacy with Jews. That's a topos in that early
yeah,
genre. But I completely follow what you're saying, indeed. But
it's
it but
interesting
even
that
yeah, but
there
even
to learn to read to write Arabic. He goes
yeah,
there,
yeah,
not Aramaic or
right.
Hebrew or anything, but to write
To
Arabic.
write Arabic, indeed. So basically, not to make it too long, in summary, given this discussion, how would you characterize, based on what we know now, and now that, for example, we are having more and more inscriptions coming from the epicenter of the, let's say, origins of Islam, the epicenter of the whole drama, which is the central Hijaz. We're getting more inscriptions coming from there. These inscriptions reflect a local writing tradition, right? They look more like the Quran's orthography than inscriptions further aflong do. Uh, in light of all of this, how would you characterize, what would be your opinion about the Hijaz in the 6th century and the early 7th century before the Arab conquests? What kind of, in terms of your literate, non-literate spectrum, we could say?
I I think we don't have enough evidence to make a decision on that. we know that some people were literate because they left us inscriptions, but these, considering you've got 300 years, so to speak, of a population in the Hijaz, the number of inscriptions is tiny. But there are very few inscriptions in other languages there. You might expect, if the trading was going on, to have some Greek inscriptions by traders. As far as I know, there are none, but I may be wrong. But certainly sort of south of Madain Saleh, shall we say. I mean, but I think we just don't know. But what I would absolutely emphasize is that the picture I painted for the nomads in the north of Arabia between the mid 6th century BC and the 3rd century AD or the 4th century AD is entirely different and has no bearing on what was happening in the central Hijaz in the 6th and 7th centuries AD. I'm not drawing conclusions from the one to the other. And I certainly would not describe the society of Mecca at the time of the Prophet as being similar to that of the Safiatic writers in the
Right. And if you look at references in the Quran which tell you to draw up contracts and basically write everything down, there seems to be a huge emphasis on the use of writing for the functioning of that society. With that, coupled with the fact that we do have the shadow of a writing tradition, at least cast on these stones, that's well, and as we said, the way that the Arabic script evolved suggests that it was used mostly on perishable material, not on stone. So that's fine. Would you say, coupling all that together, that is it a reasonable hypothesis to say that the Hijaz was a literate society according to your definition at that time, or would that be to go too far with the evidence?
I think parts. I mean, I think almost certainly Medina.
Yes. I mean, we mean urban centers. We don't mean, of course, farmers in the mountains or nomads, right? We mean in the settled areas. Yeah.
Yes, I think in the settled areas there seems to have been, as far as we can tell, the society of Yathrib, Medina, was almost certainly a literate society.
Right. Yeah.
Literacy was used for everything. For Mecca, I would have thought the same, because after all, they were traders.
Yeah. And I guess Taif too. I mean, Mecca is sort of linked to Taif, and Taif was an important place, right? Absolutely. And it's significant, though. Now we have quite a number of inscriptions from the Taif area in the Arabic script, which is quite nice. 6th century, early 7th century. By the count now, I think we're at 5. And just to give you just to put that, 5 seems like a small number, but we're talking about really an ink script that is in ad hoc circumstances put on rock. So we're not going to expect to see it like Safiatic. Safiatic was a rock script, and that's why it's so represented. But 5 exceeds the number of Arabic inscriptions from the same period from Syria and Jordan, right? Doesn't it? I mean, we have 4 from Syria and Jordan at the same time. And those were the only ones we knew for so long. So just absolutely. To give you, so in that context, 5 is quite a significant number. The number's sure to grow. And I anticipate people asking about, from Mecca proper, do we have Arabic inscriptions from the 6th century, early 7th century from Mecca proper? Those who know about the, transformations that Mecca underwent in the last century, expansion, urbanization, and all this business, much of the ancient, topography has been destroyed and leveled. So it's impossible to know what was there or not, right? We can't make any kind of statement as to whether there were texts in Mecca proper as such. Maybe there were, maybe there weren't. We will never know. But if we look at the areas around Mecca, there certainly are. Yeah. Very good, very good. Well, I mean, that's tremendous. And well, let's maybe I could push you just a little bit on spec since I have you here, just to speculate a tiny bit.
Ooh, I'm not sure.
Do you think if you have, and this is complete speculation, right? And we're talking about Mecca and Medina and the central Hijaz. We're not talking about what's going up north among the Jaffnids, the Ghassanids. That's a completely different cultural environment. And what they're doing does not bear necessarily on the Hijaz and vice versa. But in the Hijaz, let's say you have in Medina you have a thriving Jewish community that, according to what you said, literate Jews as well, using the Arabic language, perhaps they are running the scribal schools, right? In that sense, the scribal schools are connected to Jewish centers. Fine. Would you think that this would be a sort of environment in which Jews using the Arabic language and the Arabic script would put down in their vernacular, which was Arabic, in their day-to-day script, which was Arabic, commentaries on religious texts? Would they write, is it plausible that they wrote religious texts down in Arabic?
I mean, anything is possible, but
of course, anything is possible. Plausible.
I'm not sure that it's. I would have thought it probably wasn't, because if they were learned, they would. I mean, as learned people commenting on the text, they would do it either in Aramaic or in Hebrew.
Okay.
But if they were giving sermons,
okay.
Then I think probably that would be in Arabic, because that would be the normal language.
Right.
Because I think we also have to remember that a large number of the Jews in Arabia at the time of the Prophet were converts, and we think this because they all have Arabic names. And I'm not all, but I mean a large number. And this was pointed out to me by someone, I can't remember who, but of the list of Jews who annoyed the Prophet, in inverted commas, in hadith, in one of the early histories, there are 150 something of them, of which only 5 have Jewish names. All the rest, these are all called Jews, but all the rest have Arabic names.
Interesting, yeah.
Which suggests that they are very, very well integrated into an Arab society.
Right, yeah.
They may not all be converts, but it's just as we have in our English politics, we have a family called Miliband, which is a Jewish family, and one is called David and the other is called Edward.
Okay, yeah. Absolutely.
And in the inscription at Tema from 202, I think, or 201 AD, the dead man's brothers, one has a Jewish name, one has an Arabic name.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. So well integrated. These communities have been there for a long time, well integrated, indicating that their vernacular was Arabic.
Yes.
And that in this model, you could imagine a situation where, yes, the official commentaries, I should have, kind of nuanced this earlier, the official commentaries, any kind of anything being done in a proper learned environment would have been in the liturgical language, right? But the notes, you're saying, sermon notes and things of this could plausibly be in the local vernacular.
Yes.
Okay.
And I think because I think, again, the sermon is going to be given in Arabic.
And given in Arabic as well. Yes, absolutely. And the notes on it, then the notes or any kind of writing connected to the performance of that sermon would then plausibly be in Arabic as well. So, okay, so I understand. Yes. Okay, well, very good. Was there anything else you want to say on the matter?
I don't know. I think the basis of this confusion that Shoemaker has is his transferring what I said about cultural matters, cultural objects, as history and genealogy and so on, and religion, into Arab culture, which he uses as if it's a word, a synonym for Arab society. Um, and I think that makes for total confusion in the way he uses
Yes.
that word.
I see. I see.
And also he seems to think that what we know about the society of Safavidic writers extended all the way down to Yemen and was
Yeah,
the same all over.
absolutely. Yeah. Yeah. It's the, it's sort of the problems the Greeks created when they decided to extend the term Arab to the entire peninsula, right? We then think what applies to one Arab society applies to all. And thank you so much, Michael. I don't want to take up more of your time. It's always wonderful to chat with you. Uh,
But
and
I
I
hope
think
it was some help anyway.
Well, it's been tremendous help, and it's always great to learn from you. Well, maybe you'll have the opportunity to, in light of the last, now it's almost 14 years of new discoveries. You'll have the chance to revise that article and make a sort of a second edition of it, incorporating those new
Absolutely.
things. Yeah,
Yes.
absolutely.
Yes, I hope so. I mean, actually, the 2000 article, the reflections on the
Yeah.
Atlas of I mean, there's so much in that that is wrong now. I mean, has been proved wrong since. I think one ought to blot that out.
No, not at all. What I tell, I mean, I tell this to my students all the time is that we hope to be, we make our contributions, and for a healthy field, everything we say at this moment is going to be incomplete or
Yes.
wrong or whatever, and it's going to be a constant dialogue of improvement. So, I mean, that article, the 2000 article, is a cornerstone. I mean, it's so important. And, now that everybody's been looking at these Talmudic scripts more closely and looking at the linguistic, as more inscriptions to discover and more linguistic information comes forth, we refine that map that you drew, but it's simply a matter of refinement. And I
Well,
think that that's the wonderful thing. And I think a lot of people don't realize this, but when they think about ancient North Arabian and the name of all the scripts, Hasaitic, Dadanitic, and so forth, they don't realize that terminology, the very way we talk about ancient North Arabian goes back to that article, right? To that work. And so it's foundational, I think. And all of these works need second, third editions because our field, luckily, is quite healthy. We have much to do.
thanks to
And
you. No,
no,
thanks
no,
to you.
not at all. Our field is quite healthy. We have much to do. And so, and we're all, I mean, we hope to all be somewhat incomplete and wrong, and for future generations to improve on us. Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. I
Thank you so
completely
much,
agree.
Michael. That's
Thank you
tremendous.
very
Thank
much.
you. Yeah.
Good to see you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.